She was a pregnant mother, a wife, an ordinary woman. Until she died on the operating table, her soul left her body, and she was pulled into a place that science cannot explain. Before her stood Jesus Christ. He knew her name, he knew every pain she had endured, and he told her that she had fulfilled her mission. But she could not leave. She begged to return to her child, and that was when Jesus showed her a terrifying prophecy about America and the world, a future that humanity is not prepared to face. What she witnessed will leave you speechless. This is her testimony. Hello, Eternal Bible Stories and its viewers. My name is Tara, but my friends call me Tartar. Don't ask why. First of all, I want to express my gratitude because your channel has truly changed my life since the moment I stumbled upon it. The stories you share have given me the courage to step out of my comfort zone and share my own experience with my loved ones. 3 weeks ago, I told my story to my mother, father, and younger brother. A week ago, I finally found the strength to share it with my husband and my entire family. I was met with looks of astonishment, but thankfully they were supportive. Still, I can't help but wonder, do they truly believe me, or do they think it was just hallucinations caused by postpartum depression? I don't know the answer, but what I do know is that finally speaking about it has lifted a huge weight off my chest. And now, I'm ready to tell you the truth about what really happened to me. In January 2021, I found out I was pregnant with my 4th child. I should have been overjoyed, but the moment I saw those 2 pink lines, an uneasy feeling gripped me. Something felt off, a quiet warning whispering in the back of my mind. I brushed it off as nerves. Pregnancy at 40 wasn't easy after all. But as the weeks passed, the feeling only grew stronger, a heavy dread settling in my chest. At 2 months, my fears became reality. Placenta previa, a high-risk condition, severe bleeding, preterm labor, miscarriage, even my own life was at stake. Doctors put me on strict bed rest, no lifting, no sudden movements. But how could I rest when I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall? Still, I clung to hope. Other women had gone through this and had healthy babies. I told myself I would be one of them. Then came the next blow. We opted for amniotic fluid testing just to be sure. I remember the doctor's face as he read the results, the weight in his voice before he even spoke. Your baby has a high probability of Down syndrome. The room spun, my breath caught, my heart pounded. At 40, with 3 kids already, how would I manage? Would my baby suffer, struggle? Who would care for them when I was gone? Some suggested abortion, but not us. Our faith was firm. This child was meant to be. So I pressed forward, lying still, praying, hoping, waiting. Then, at 7 months pregnant, my nightmare truly began. It started with a sudden gush. Warmth pooled beneath me, but when I looked down, terror gripped me. This wasn't amniotic fluid. It was blood, and it wasn't stopping. A relentless flood of crimson soaked my clothes, my sheets, everything around me. My hands pressed desperately against my belly, as if I could somehow hold my life in place, but my body was betraying me. I screamed for my mother, "Call an ambulance, hurry!" She rushed in, face pale, phone trembling in her hands. The paramedics arrived, urgent, relentless. Hands worked quickly, IVs, oxygen, pressure against my abdomen. "She's losing too much blood, move, now!" The world tilted, sirens wailing as I was rushed into the ambulance. My body felt colder, heavier, the numbness creeping in. "Tara, stay with us." Blinding hospital lights, doctors swarming, voices frantic, "Emergency C-section, now!" Everything blurred, machines beeped wildly, then the last words before the darkness took me. "We're losing her." And then, nothing. No sound, no light, no pain, just silence. Because at that moment, I died. The strange thing about death is that you can see it happening. It's not like in the movies where everything fades to black. There was no dramatic goodbye, no slow descent into unconsciousness. One moment I was in unbearable pain, my body fighting against itself, my mind barely clinging to reality. The next, I was floating above it all, weightless, untethered, watching the scene unfold as if I were an outsider looking in. I saw my own body, lying lifeless on the operating table, skin pale and still, surrounded by doctors and nurses who were frantically trying to save me. Machines screamed warnings into the sterile air, their beeps erratic, chaotic, before dissolving into the dreaded long, unbroken tone of finality. The air in the room was thick with urgency, voices sharp, hands moving with precision but also desperation. "We're losing her," the doctor's voice cut through the chaos, tight with stress. "Open her up now. We need to get the baby out first, then we'll focus on saving the mother." I watched in horrified fascination as they cut into my abdomen, their movements swift, practiced, racing against time. My stomach clenched, though I felt no pain. I wanted to scream, to flinch, to react in some way, but I wasn't really there anymore, just a silent observer, watching the fight for my life. And then they pulled him out. A tiny, fragile form, impossibly small, too still, too quiet. My baby boy. He didn't move. He didn't cry. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the room. The doctor's voice broke through the tension, clipped and urgent. "I don't know if the baby's going to make it. Get NICU in here. Start resuscitation immediately." I wanted to reach for him, to cradle him in my arms, to tell him I was here. I was still here. But no one could hear me. No one could see me. I was invisible, watching my own worst nightmare unfold before me. Then my eyes were drawn back to my body, still sprawled lifeless on the table. A nurse was pounding on my chest, her hands pressing down over and over, her face tight with urgency. Another nurse was forcing oxygen into my lungs, while someone else was preparing something behind them. "Come on, come on! Don't let her go," one of them muttered under their breath, as if willing me back to life. I stood there, or rather, floated there, helpless, watching the battle for my survival. I should have been panicked, terrified, screaming for my body to wake up, but I wasn't. There was a strange detachment, an eerie sense of calm, as if part of me already knew the outcome. And then, the final command. "Get the defibrillator, charge to 200, clear." The very moment the doctor shouted those words, something yanked me upward. An invisible force, grabbing me by an unseen thread and pulling me at an unimaginable speed. I wasn't falling, I was soaring. It was like being ripped from the earth itself, flung upward at an impossible velocity, moving faster than anything I had ever experienced. The operating room, the doctors, my body, my baby, they all vanished in an instant. I was being taken somewhere else. And just like that, I was gone. I soared upward, faster than I could comprehend, moving at an impossible speed, as if I were plummeting off a cliff, but in reverse. The force pulling me was overwhelming, like gravity had flipped, like I was being lifted beyond time itself. My mind raced, trying to grasp what was happening, but there was no fear, no pain, only a strange, weightless sensation as I was propelled higher and higher. Then, suddenly, I stopped. It wasn't a gradual slowing down, nor a gentle landing. One moment, I was moving faster than light. The next, I was completely still. A voice, rich and resonant, filled not just the air around me, but my very soul. "Welcome, Tara. We have been expecting you." The words didn't come from a direction. They seemed to be everywhere at once, spoken not with sound but directly into my consciousness. My vision, which had been hazy before, began to sharpen, and as I took in my surroundings, my breath caught in awe. I was standing in a city unlike anything on earth. Everything around me shimmered with an ethereal glow. Buildings made of crystal, towering yet weightless, reflecting light that seemed to come from within them rather than from any sun. The air itself felt alive, humming with energy, as if it carried a presence beyond human comprehension. I felt something behind me, an unseen warmth embracing me like the purest love I had ever known. I turned, and that's when I saw him. A man stood before me. He wasn't just anyone. I didn't recognize him in the way you recognize a face, but something deep inside me knew him, had always known him. His presence was magnetic, commanding yet gentle, powerful yet filled with unshakable peace. He had a rich brown beard, deep-set eyes that held galaxies within them, and the warmest smile I had ever seen. His very existence radiated love, the kind of love that wraps around you like a safety net, the kind that makes you feel whole. He wore a flowing robe, and around his waist was a golden sash, gleaming like the morning sun. My voice trembled as I spoke. "You were waiting for me." His eyes softened. I swallowed hard. "But why me?" There was no judgment in his expression, no condemnation, only deep understanding, as if he could see every thought, every doubt, every question I had ever held inside me. "Tara, you have fulfilled your mission. It is time for you to come home." My heart clenched. Home. Somewhere deep inside, I knew exactly what he meant, but even in the presence of pure peace, something within me resisted. Because I remembered why I had fought so hard, why I had clung so desperately to life. And I knew that I could not stay. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave. "No, it's not my time. I just had a baby. I need to go back." My voice trembled, raw with desperation. I could feel the peace of this place, the overwhelming love, the complete absence of pain or sorrow. Yet none of it mattered. As breathtaking as this realm was, as much as it felt like home, I knew one undeniable truth. I could not stay. The man before me, Jesus, tilted his head slightly, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite describe. Not confusion, not disapproval, but deep, infinite understanding. "Why do you wish to return so badly?" His voice was steady, gentle, as if he already knew the answer, but wanted me to say it aloud. Tears welled up in my eyes. My heart ached with the weight of my plea. "Because of my children." My voice broke. "They need me. I can't leave them. Please, let me go back." He smiled then, a soft, knowing smile. "You are the first soul to ever beg to return, instead of begging to stay." For a fleeting moment I wavered. Was it truly so unusual to want to go back? Had every soul before me longed to stay in this perfect, eternal peace? Had they seen the world and decided that this place, this heaven, was worth never looking back? But even as my heart ached for the warmth of this realm, I knew that my place wasn't here yet. Not while my children still needed me. Then his expression grew more serious, more solemn. "Your body is not yet ready for you." His words sent a chill through me. "What do you mean?" "If you return now, your body will not survive. You will die permanently, and there will be no coming back." A lump formed in my throat. I had fought so hard to return, to make it back to my children, yet now he was telling me that even if I left this place, I might not make it. He reached out, extending his hand toward me. Without thinking, I took it. The moment our hands touched, I felt something indescribable. A love so vast, so pure, so absolute, it filled every crack, every wound, every sorrow I had ever known. In that single touch, I understood that I was known, I was loved, and I had always belonged. Then it happened. Memories surged through me, not as mere flashes, but as if I were reliving them all at once. My life unfolded before me. I saw myself as an infant, my first breath, my first cry. I saw the moments of joy, the laughter, the love. I saw the pain, the struggles, the moments of doubt and fear. I saw the choices I made, the people I hurt, the kindness I gave, the love I shared. And I saw my death, right there on that operating table. Tears streamed down my face. I clung to his hand, shaking, overwhelmed by everything I had seen. He looked into my eyes, his gaze filled with something both sorrowful and hopeful. Then, with a quiet certainty, he spoke once more. "This is what awaits you when you truly return home." I hesitated. My soul trembled between two realities, one where I stayed in the peace of eternity, and one where I fought my way back to my children, to the unknown struggle that awaited me. I looked at him, my heart torn between the two choices. But I already knew what I had to do. I have to go back. The moment I took his hand, a surge of pure, overwhelming love washed over me. It wasn't just warmth. It was a love that knew no bounds, that saw every part of me and embraced me anyway. Every fear, every doubt, every burden I had ever carried melted away in his touch. For the first time, I felt what it meant to be completely known, completely accepted. Yet at the same time, something inside me hesitated. A whisper of uncertainty crept in. Did I truly want to go back? I had fought so hard to return, but now, standing here, wrapped in this peace, I wasn't sure if I could leave. He smiled, his gaze filled with infinite understanding. "Come, walk with me." We began to move, stepping onto streets that shimmered like liquid crystal, reflecting light in ways I had never seen before. The air around us wasn't just still, it was alive, humming with energy, filled with a presence beyond human comprehension. As we walked, souls passed by, moving with grace and purpose. Some were alone, their faces radiant with peace, as if lost in communion with something greater. Others walked together, speaking in soft voices, their laughter like the sound of distant chimes. A few turned toward me, their eyes lighting up in recognition, as though they had known me long before this moment. Had they? A deep sense of familiarity stirred within me, but before I could dwell on it, everything around me shifted. I wasn't just remembering my life. I was reliving it. But not as a mere spectator, not as a series of flashes on a screen. I was inside it. I saw my own birth, but not through my mother's eyes. I saw it through God's perspective. I saw him breathe life into me, forming my soul with divine intention. I saw myself before I was ever born, standing before him, pleading to be sent to the family I had chosen. And then I lived my life all over again. I saw the beautiful moments, the laughter of childhood, the love of family, the joy of holding my babies for the first time. I felt the warmth of every kind word I had ever spoken, every act of kindness I had ever given. I felt the love I had poured into the world. But then came the moments that were harder to face. I saw the pain I had caused. Every sharp word, every careless action, every missed opportunity to love better. And I didn't just see them, I felt them. I felt the sadness of those I had hurt, the weight of the disappointments I had inflicted, the silent wounds I had left behind. Tears streamed down my face as I stood within the hearts of those I had affected, feeling their pain as if it were my own. "Every soul experiences this," he said softly. His voice carried no judgment, only deep compassion. "But you are not being punished, you are not being condemned, you are simply seeing what you have learned." And that was when I understood. Every joy, every sorrow, every trial, none of it had been wasted. The pain I had endured, the love I had given, the mistakes I had made, it all mattered. Every experience had shaped me, taught me, transformed me. There was no wasted suffering. I turned to him, my heart still raw from everything I had seen. His eyes held something both gentle and firm. "You have fulfilled your mission. It is time for you to stay." For a moment, I stood frozen. Stay? Here? In this perfect peace? This endless love? Hadn't I longed for this all my life? Hadn't I fought to be good enough for a place like this? But then, I saw them, my children, their tiny hands reaching for me, their innocent voices calling, "Mama." I saw their tears, their longing, their need for a mother who had promised to always be there. I gasped, my breath hitching. A new kind of desperation filled my soul, stronger than anything I had ever felt before. I turned to him, tears streaming down my face, my hands trembling. "Please, let me go back. My children need me." Before granting my return, he looked at me, his eyes carrying a weight so profound that it sent a shiver through my very soul. I felt as if I was standing before a truth too great to bear, yet too important to turn away from. "Then look, Tara. See the future of the world you wish to return to." And suddenly, I saw it. The ground beneath me shook violently, as if the very foundations of the earth were being torn apart. I watched in horrified disbelief as cracks snaked across the land, splitting highways, swallowing buildings, ripping cities apart. People ran, screaming, their faces twisted in terror, but there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. 2042. A great earthquake will fracture the United States. The West Coast was breaking apart, the land splitting like an open wound. Then I saw California crumble, its once thriving cities dragged beneath the ocean, swallowed whole by the merciless waves. Entire neighborhoods vanished in an instant. The coastline was erased, replaced by a vast, endless sea. And still, the devastation spread. Across the Pacific, an even greater horror unfolded. I watched as Japan and South Korea disappeared, not partially, not in sections, completely gone. The earth convulsed, the ocean roared like an unchained beast, and within moments, entire nations were swallowed into the abyss. Skyscrapers buckled and collapsed, bridges snapped like twigs, millions of lives were lost in an instant. Panic, screaming, chaos. Humanity was not prepared. Yet, the worst was still to come. The destruction did not end with nature. Mankind would bring upon itself an even darker fate. In the wake of disaster, nations turned on each other, desperate to claim what little resources remained. Tensions rose, alliances crumbled, and the world stood on the edge of war. 2048, it begins. What started as small conflicts quickly escalated. Territorial disputes, economic collapses. The fight for survival led to the ignition of World War III. I saw nations crumbling under the weight of war. The world's greatest superpowers, Russia, China, and the United States, were dragged into a conflict they could not escape. I saw cities reduced to ashes, the sky thick with smoke and fire, the earth itself trembling not from natural disasters, but from the weapons of man. Millions more perished, not by the force of nature, but by the hands of their own kind. And then, 2053, the war ends. But the world is unrecognizable. Borders have shifted, governments have fallen, civilizations have crumbled beyond repair. What once was a thriving world had now become a wasteland of destruction and despair. Power belonged not to nations, but to those who had survived. I wanted to look away, to unsee what I had just witnessed, to shut out the visions of loss, suffering, and ruin. But I couldn't. Because this wasn't just a warning, it was the truth of what was coming. And it was terrifying. Now that you have seen, do you still wish to return?" There was no hesitation, no doubt, no second guessing. "Yes, I want to go back. I want to be with my children." The words burst from my soul with unshakable certainty. Whatever awaited me on earth, pain, hardship, uncertainty, it did not matter. My children needed me, and I would fight to return to them. He held my gaze for a long moment, as if searching the depths of my soul, weighing my resolve against the reality of what lay ahead. Then, finally, he smiled. "Very well, but remember, what I have shown you is only a possible future. It has not yet been written in stone." His voice carried a quiet power, a reminder that fate was not fixed, that humanity still had the power to change its course. Then, with a warmth that seeped into every fiber of my being, he spoke the words that would send me back. "Now, it is time for you to return." At that exact moment, a violent jolt surged through me. A sharp, electrifying force ripped me away from the warmth of eternity, yanking me downward with the force of a falling star. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a desperate voice shout, "Shock her again." Before I could even process what was happening, I felt myself being hurled back, not gently, not softly, but with a force so intense it felt like I was plummeting from the heavens, crashing back into the weight of mortality. My eyes flew open at the very moment a searing current of electricity surged through my body. My chest arched, my limbs convulsed, every nerve in my body igniting with unbearable pain. "She's back!" The doctor's voice rang through the room, filled with urgency and relief. And then, darkness again. My body collapsed, the world faded, and once more, I slipped into unconsciousness. When I woke up, a sharp, searing pain spread through my chest. Every breath felt like fire. 3 of my ribs had been broken during CPR, but none of it mattered. I struggled to speak, my throat raw, my body weak, but I forced the words out. "My son, is he okay?" A nurse looked at me, hesitation flickering across her face before she finally spoke. "Your baby is fine. He's strong. And you won't believe this, but there's no sign of Down syndrome." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. Tears welled up in my eyes, then spilled down my cheeks. I had prepared myself for challenges, for struggles, for a life of uncertainties, but here, now, in this moment, I knew God had performed a miracle. I sobbed uncontrollably, overwhelmed with gratitude, with relief, with an indescribable sense of divine love. My baby had been healed. God had healed him. As I slowly recovered, one question refused to leave my mind. How long was I gone? I asked the doctors, the nurses, anyone who had been there when I was pulled back from the brink of death. But no one would answer me. Each time I spoke the words, I saw the same reaction, a moment of hesitation, a flicker of tension in their eyes. Some would glance at each other before quickly changing the subject. Others would look at me with something between disbelief and unease, as if they weren't sure how to respond. At first, I pressed harder, desperate for answers. But the more I asked, the more they avoided me. The silence in their response said more than words ever could. And then I understood. I had died. I didn't know for how long, minutes, an hour, more. But I had been gone, and they all knew it. Maybe they didn't want to admit it. Maybe they thought telling me the truth would only cause more distress. But deep down, I didn't need them to say it, because I had already seen the other side. I had stood in a city not of this world, spoken to the one who held all of existence in his hands, and I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, God had sent me back. I know that for many, what I've shared may seem impossible, a story too strange, too unreal to accept. Some will dismiss it as a dream, a hallucination, the product of a mind clinging to life. But I don't care who believes me and who doesn't, because I was there. I stood in a place more beautiful than words can describe. I met him, the one who knew me before I ever took my first breath. I saw the future, a warning of what may come, a glimpse of what humanity is heading toward if we do not turn back to him. But above all, I learnt one undeniable truth. God is greater than everything, greater than fear, greater than suffering, greater than the impossible. He saved my son, a child who by all medical predictions was supposed to have Down syndrome, but was born perfectly healthy. He brought me back even when my body had given up, even when I had crossed over into eternity. And even now, I know he is healing you, whether you see it or not. Maybe it's not the healing you expected. Maybe it's not the miracle you prayed for, but he is there, working, restoring, even in the silence, even in the moments when you feel most alone. Because even when we do not call on him, he is always there, watching, waiting, loving, and when the time comes, he will welcome us home. And what do you think? Do you believe we are truly approaching these events? The world is changing rapidly. Earthquakes, natural disasters, wars, and political unrest are becoming more frequent. Many people feel that something big is coming, that we are living in times unlike any before. Do you believe the great earthquake and war I was shown will soon become reality? Are these visions a warning from God for us to prepare? I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Are you noticing the signs? Do you feel something shifting in the world? But no matter what happens, no matter how uncertain the future may seem, remember this: God is always with us. He is our protector, our refuge in times of trouble. Even when fear grips the world, even when everything feels like it is falling apart, he remains unshaken. If this testimony has touched you, subscribe to Eternal Bible Stories for more powerful accounts of near-death experiences and divine revelations. Let us walk this path together, strengthening our faith, seeking the truth, and staying close to God. May God bless you, guide you, and give you peace in these uncertain times.